My name is Priscilla DaCosta, and today we'll be taking a look at the report on outcomes and recommendations from the LGBTQ Youth Suicide Prevention Summit. The guiding principle of this initiative was to recognize the diversity of LGBTQ youth. As many studies were not available on LGBTQ minorities, Summit participants agreed that resources and toolkits will only be useful when they are tailored to the unique experiences of the entire LGBTQ community. Our main focus today will be on recommendations for schools, education, and training. However, we will also be taking a look at public awareness and community involvement, research, and resource development. LGBTQ youth are at an increased risk for suicide due to the environmental factors they encounter, such as homophobia and transphobia. The participants found that the best way to improve these environmental conditions was to implement LGBTQ-specific policies in all levels of education across Canada. And with the implementation of these policies comes a need for everyone in the education system to be educated on what it means to be LGBTQ, the risk factors for youth, and how to recognize and respond to those factors. Participants made the recommendation that LGBTQ youth be given access to medical care and that increased training on LGBTQ-related topics be implemented in all medical schools. This is because in 2011, Canadian medical schools spent an average of only 4 hours on LGBTQ-related topics. Furthermore, the summit participants recommended providing access to safe schools for transitioning trans youth, such as providing gender-neutral washrooms and change rooms and creating gay-straight alliances within the school. Let's take a brief look at the public awareness and community involvement recommendations. First, we have prioritizing youth voice in LGBTQ suicide prevention activities, creating a task force of Canada's First Nations and Aboriginal peoples, as many Two-Spirit people experience racism within their LGBTQ community. They noted that homeless youth is not reached through school suicide prevention initiatives, and that these initiatives must go beyond the school system, and a need for a chief suicide prevention officer was listed, as there are no resources in ensuring the consistency or even the effectiveness of these prevention programs. The report discussed recommendations on expanding research efforts, as very little data was available on the diverse LGBTQ community. This made it difficult to create programs based on facts and even get funding for these programs. They included the importance of a partnership with the Chief Coroners and Chief Medical Examiners of Canada to help increase the data available. And lastly, they recommended a plan to implement evaluation methods to determine the effectiveness of the LGBTQ policies and initiatives that were made. As for resource development, the report recommended adding resources for educating the LGBTQ youth service providers about minorities and their specific challenges, creating an LGBTQ youth suicide prevention toolkit to be delivered to all organizations interacting with the community, creating programs for suicide prevention specifically for LGBTQ youth, as many youth feared using the generic services that were available, and finally, adding resources to develop a Care for the Caregivers program to support those helping youth struggling with suicide ideation and behaviors. As we have learned, the education system is closely connected to the Ontario Human Rights Code. This code advocates for the rights of everyone relating to gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation. By promoting continuing education on LGBTQ youth and suicide risks, we aim to learn more about the diversity of the community and will in turn be able to provide a more equitable experience in our schools. Although I have seen the creation of gay-straight alliances and use of gender-neutral facilities, there is still a lot that needs to be done in reaching every school and every student. I believe there is a need for more training for all stakeholders in the school systems, and that this education should be ongoing. We must all do our part in educating ourselves so that we may understand the diverse LGBT community and the risks surrounding youth suicide. Thank you.